When I was a kid, I hung out a lot by default with this girl named Katie. I honestly really didn't like Katie at all. She was dumber than a bag of hammers and annoyed me most of the time. But she and I were both outcasts, so we kinda had no choice but to befriend each other. She was always doing things that were marvels of stupidity. I'm honestly amazed that she made it to adulthood, given how little regard she had for her own safety or other people's. She also lied all the time. This poor child was a real piece of work. When we were about 10, we went out trick-or-treating together. We went by ourselves as my neighborhood was generally pretty safe. I, at least, was smart enough not to do anything spectacularly dangerous. So our parents were fine with us going out, just the two of us, as long as we were both back by 9. Everything was fine until we got to one particular house at the end of a long street. It didn't really stand out in any way, but there were no Halloween decorations of any kind, just a lone porch light on. We decided to try it out for candy. There were no other kids around at that time, just us. A man in his 50s opened up the door, and we said, "Trick or treat." He looked around for a moment, realized we had no parents with us, and said,
"Why don't the two of you come inside? Show me a few tricks, and then we'll see about treats."
Katie, dipshit that she was, immediately said, "Okay," and stepped through his doorway. I grabbed her and hauled her back out onto the porch and said, "No way, you creep," and then dragged her away from the house. She protested the entire time, saying that she thought he had good candy, even claiming, eventually, that she knew the man and that he was a personal friend of her family, so she knew he wouldn't hurt us. Keep in mind, this was my neighborhood, not hers, so it wasn't very likely that she nor her family had any familiarity with this guy. So I said, "If you know him, what's his name?" She couldn't come up with anything, so I rolled my eyes and kept dragging her back towards my house. The following year, she wanted to go trick-or-treating with me again, but I told her she was on her own. I wasn't going to be responsible for saving her from being assaulted or murdered by anyone. She was too dense to avoid obvious peril, and that was on her, not me. So to the creepy neighbor that wanted to potentially molest children on Halloween, let's not meet again. A few years back, my now husband and I were living with my mom. My husband had started a new job where he was working 14-hour shifts and wouldn't get home until 11 p.m. My brother liked to go out, so he also wasn't home. This meant that my mom and I were home alone on Halloween. We lived on a busy street, so we ran out of candy quite early, probably around 9 p.m. My mom put a sign on the door and we went to bed. For some reason, we had 5 dogs in the house, and at this point, my brother, who was about 21 years old, and I was around 22. My brother has a female German Shepherd Husky mix named Coco, and she's very good at reading our body language. Our screen door had a large window and didn't lock, and our main door didn't have a view window. So the doorbell rings around 11:30 p.m., and I got up instantly and ran toward the door. I stupidly assumed without a thought that it was my husband coming home from work. I opened up that door without thinking, and there were 2 very large people wearing black hoodies and black sweatpants. I knew the screen door didn't lock, so I realized instantly this was a bad situation. My mom had heard the doorbell as well, so she was walking toward the door. Knowing that my husband had keys to the house, she realized instantly it wasn't him, and decided to come with me to the door. I was so stunned I didn't say anything, but my mom came up behind me and aggressively said, "Can I help you?" Before they could even speak, Coco jumped up at the glass and started barking and growling at them. When her paws pushed through the door, it opened slightly, and the 2 people took a step back. They both just kind of said and stammered out, "Trick or treat." My mom said, "Don't you see the sign? We're out of candy." They both quickly walked away. My husband came home 15 minutes later, and we told him what just happened. Coco for sure saved us from a bad situation. She never acts that aggressive when people come to the door. The next morning, we saw on the news that a few blocks away, 2 people that matched that same description of the 2 people that came to our door were shot and killed because they tried to rob the home of an off-duty police officer. The time of that incident was only 30 minutes after those 2 people came to ours. This happened when I was around 10 or 11, so we're going back to 2006 or 7. It was Halloween night, and it was the first time my parents were letting me go trick-or-treating alone with my friends, without an adult. Keep in mind this was a very small town that I was born into and grew up in. It's the type of community where adults would look out for everyone's children and not just their own. So there were adults present around us the entire night, just not trailing my particular group of 3. Myself and my 2 best friends. The night had gone on without a hitch. We picked a few small streets in the town to go up and down to collect our candy in our empty pillowcases. It was probably around 7 in the evening, just before our 8:30 curfew. We went down one of the less populated streets where there was only a few houses shaped like domes. Think like Patrick's Rock from SpongeBob, only a lot more glass. I hadn't really gone down that street too many times before, and I didn't know anybody who lived there. But we made our merry way down there in hopes of some Reese's or Kit Kats. We quickly came to realize that most of the houses were quite dark. And when a house is dark on Halloween, it's telling you not to knock. However, one of the dome houses was lit up. So we walked up to it and prepared ourselves for some more sugar. When the door opened, a man answered. He was at least in his 40s, definitely middle-aged. I knew he wasn't a father of any of the kids I knew, but he seemed friendly enough. He invited us inside for some candy, and because we were raised in such a bubble of a town, we obliged. Luckily, we weren't met with death or impending danger. Instead, we were met with a Polaroid camera. The man told us he wanted to take a picture of our Halloween costumes for the local paper. He then motioned to the left of us, where a corkboard of Polaroids sat, displaying at least a dozen photographs of kids from the neighborhood cheesing at the camera in their costume. So again, we stupidly obliged. I remember feeling a little uneasy, but after the photo, he gave us candy and we were on our way home. When I told my mom about it later on that night, she was horrified, of course. She called up the other moms and the 3 of us got a nice long lecture on stranger danger. We scoured the local paper, the surrounding town papers, for any photos of town's kids in Halloween costumes. Never found any. I didn't feel as if he was capable of actually hurting us, but I do count myself very fortunate and very lucky that nothing worse happened to us. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around if you're still around sticking. And if you're sticky, stick around. If you haven't yet, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, and that notification bell to be notified when future episodes come out. If you have a true scary story of your own, feel free to send it to my email or post it to my subreddit. You can stalk me on Twitter, you can stalk me on Facebook, and you can also stalk me on Instagram. Hey, what's up? I know this episode is a lot shorter than I wanted to, but I have been putting out shorts every single day, which they're only a minute long, but it takes time on top of this, but I promise you next week is going to be fucking awesome. The following week after that is going to be even better, and then the week after that will be just as good as well. And next week I have 2 special guests that you're going to love, that you know, and that you love too. So I promise, be on the lookout for that next week. Next week is going to be really, really dope. Following week just as good. The following other week, the week of Halloween, is going to be just as good too. So I promise content's going to keep coming, and I have at least bare minimum 2 episodes a week, and the shorts will be coming out every single day too. So hope you're enjoying those. I know they're short, but it's something, right? All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.